Hey folks, today is a very special episode of Pause It For Me because it is the first time that I am not going to let myself redo the intro after I mess it up 2 or 3 times. Welcome.
You don't do that every time.
Pretty much every time.
I think you just get too in your head about how it's supposed to go when it should really be like an off-the-cuff type thing.
Yeah, like this.
Yeah.
I need to be more outside my head.
Yep.
This is going to be a semi-informal episode. It's more of like a fall wrap-up episode where we're just going to kind of casually go over the last couple of movies that we watched at the end of the Halloween season. But then a couple movies that were not part of the Halloween season that we're just going to kind of kick around and chat about. Movies that we didn't really intend to do like a full focused episode on. And then maybe a little bit of TV talk as well.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. So after the last Halloween episode came out around Halloween time, we watched both Addams Family movies.
Which we didn't think we were going to talk about on the pod.
No, but we'll just kind of talk about, like, I'm not going to do the full like log line and Andy's Trivia Corner or anything. So we watched those, and then we went to the Mayfair Theater the other day. And we saw Moonage Daydream, which is the new David Bowie documentary. That was pretty cool. And then just last night, we rewatched Sing Street, one of Hannah's favorite movies. She probably mentioned it in our first episode. And,
I don't know.
And then we watched The Sting for the first time with Robert Redford and Paul Newman.
Yeah, that was a cool experience.
And I already have the name of the podcast episode.
Sting Street?
That's right.
Yeah! That's a great one.
Yeah.
I like that.
So let's start with Addams Family. So I actually hadn't seen any of the Addams Family movies, even though you think I would have. They came out like around my time. But
yeah.
Like
pleasant surprise maybe then?
Yeah, I had only seen like reviews of them.
That could be a mixed bag.
Yeah, and this was a surprising result, is that I thought it was pretty clear the second one was better than the first one.
Yeah, I agree. I remember the second one actually way more because that was one of my brother's favorite movies growing up.
I can see why. It was pretty funny.
We had like a DVD player in our car, and we had like a certain amount of DVDs, and he always wanted to put that movie on.
You mean like a portable DVD player, right?
Yeah.
Not like a screen built into the car.
No, a portable DVD player.
I didn't think you were that fancy.
He and I would sit in the same row together, my little brother, and we would like watch something together, like heads conked together on the screen.
So Addams Family Values was one of your go-to portable DVD player movies?
Yep.
What else?
A movie called Pop Star with now deceased Aaron Carter.
That's the guy who just died?
Yes.
Really?
It's like a direct to
I don't know what.
video
I guess I thought that was
movie.
Jesse McCartney, but no.
They are
not.
similar, of the same era, sort of like solo singer that did the rounds.
He just died yesterday.
Yeah.
Who is it? What was his brother? Something Carter?
Nick Carter. They had like a reality show together, I guess.
Jeez.
Yes.
Wow, rest in peace.
So it's a direct-to-video movie about a pop star going to school, but then he has to like take some big test before his concert, but he has testophobia, which is a real thing. And I have this visceral memory of my little brother watching it and like the guy being like, "Oh, I have testophobia," and he's just like, "Oh, he's testophobia." Like so concerned. It was like this little kid. So funny.
Jeez. One of our go-to portable DVD player movies was Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, that's a great one.
Which is how our copy got worn out because it was so mishandled.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of those stupid DVDs where like one side is full screen and the other side is widescreen. But you never know. You're like, okay, it says full screen on this side.
Yeah.
So is the side that I'm looking at go face down and then that's full screen? Or is it like I'm looking at full screen, which means full screen is face up, which means the bottom is like, it's just so stupid.
That always confused me. So some of the Bob Newhart DVDs that I have, the Bob Newhart show, one side is like half of the episodes and the other side is the other half. So sometimes it's like, oh, I want to watch this episode. And then I'm like, which disc is it? And I would have to like flip it around.
Yeah. So yeah, we had that in the DVD player. We also had like Fresh Prince, I remember watching. And then one disc from a Friends box set. Like the Friends box sets on DVD They're about 4 discs to a season. And season 7, like disc 3, I want to say, got lost. I said lost. It got left in the portable DVD player for like a year. And I think I maybe watched like 1 episode from that disc and then misplaced the disc.
Darn.
So then I got like a full season or 2 ahead. And then all of a sudden I realized the disc was missing, found the disc, and I was like, oh, there's all these Friends episodes that I've never seen.
Amazing.
I think it was the disc that had Rachel's 30th birthday on it. That episode I completely missed.
Oh my gosh.
It might have also been the one where Rosita dies, or like the one where Drake Ramore gets his brain replaced.
Those are big episodes.
Yeah. The same thing happened. I might have talked about this on the podcast before. Same thing happened with a disc of The Office. Where I didn't lose the disc, but I didn't see the little like next button in the corner of the menu with the next 2 episodes. So I completely missed the episode where Roy gets fired for trying to assault Jim.
Oh yeah,
and it was a big one. like seasons later, Daryl is like, Roy left years ago. I'm like, wait, did he? Why did he leave? And then I saw that episode. I was like, oh, that's why he left.
Yeah.
So Addams Family.
Yeah. What I was going to say is like missing, especially with a show that you love so much, like Friends, missing and then finding out later that there's episodes you've never seen. That's like extra fries at the bottom of the bag.
Yeah. Well, then I was so tickled by that whole scenario that I did that then on purpose with Doctor Who.
Oh,
I purposely skipped a David Tennant episode because I was like, once David Tennant's no longer in the show, I'm going to be sad that there's no more David Tennant episodes, although that may be changing soon.
Really?
But,
didn't know that.
So I skipped an episode and then went back and watched it later. And I was like, oh, a new David Tennant episode.
I think that's what I'm subconsciously doing with iZombie. Is like I watched the whole...
You're still not done?
No, I watched the whole show as it aired, and then I got to the last season, and then I think I haven't seen like the last few episodes.
How long ago did they come out?
When we first were married, so...
A couple of years.
Like 2019.
Did you almost forget what year we got married?
Yeah.
It's plastered on the wall. Yeah, you got to get on those episodes.
Yeah, but then
close that chapter.
It'll be done, and I, the story will be capped off. It won't be like,
But if you enjoy
my headcanon.
If you enjoy the show so much, don't you want to watch the episodes?
Yeah.
If we'll see. Now, then when?
This is true. Got to bite the bullet.
Yeah.
All right, so Addams Family.
Biting a bullet seems like something that the Addams Family would do.
Oh, yeah, for fun.
Yeah.
It's funny that you had never seen these.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you enjoyed it to some degree because it's by the same creator as Men in Black. Or same
Barry
director.
Sonnenfeld, yes, same director. Same font, too. The opening title font of Addams Family was like the same font as the opening title font of Men in Black.
Which is weird because the cover is a lot more ornate looking. Yeah. Same with Men in Black. It has a very specific font, but not for the opening sequence.
Well, they're both 90s movies, so maybe he was just in a font phase at that point. So I found the first movie very average.
I thought it was pretty good.
There wasn't much wrong with it, but there wasn't much exemplary about it.
What I liked was the characters. I think the characters that they crafted and the setting was great. I just think that the overarching plot was maybe lacking.
You say overarching, not overarching?
Well, it's a similar sort of theme. A lot of arches arc.
Just a question. Just personal preference.
Yeah. I don't know what's the proper term.
I already forgot which one you said. Overarching? I say overarching, I think.
Yeah, but you're not sure.
Yeah. These are the topics that are worth talking about, people.
Yeah. This is what other podcasts are afraid to do. Yeah. So yeah, I can't remember what we were saying before in a previous episode. I think we were saying like macro versus micro storytelling.
Sure, yeah.
So I can't remember for Dawn of the Dead, we preferred the micro storytelling, or is it the opposite?
Macro storytelling, it was like, yeah, I understand they're escaping, they're going to a mall, they're hiding out, they need to get gear. But then the micro storytelling, I was like, what is happening in the scene? What are they doing with the trucks? I'm not following. And then 3 scenes later, I'm like, oh, that's what they were doing. Oh, okay.
Okay, well, that movie is more of an action movie. So it was like, it was important to see a lot of the action scenes, whereas a movie like this that's based on a TV show that is known for more micro storytelling with little vignettes, I think it really shined during those vignettes that it was emulating and paying tribute to, like, okay, here's Gomez, he does this wacky thing. I loved all those little bits and pieces, but the overall story with Fester, I was like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I would have preferred Fester just like be part of the Addams family from the beginning, because we kind of had to wait until halfway through the movie for real Fester. And then by the time that happened, I was like, oh, great. Yeah, awesome. And then before that, I was kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
But that's what made the second movie a lot better, is because it was the full Addams family doing the full Addams family thing. Fester got to be Fester. They're all doing funny stuff. Right off the bat, the second one felt more self-aware, Yeah. When Morticia was like, Gomez, I'm having a baby. Right now.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, all right. Here we go.
Funny. And you're like saying, like, Morticia, I think it was like this in the first movie, but they really leaned into it in the second one. Morticia was always lit in a very dramatic way. Yeah. Even in like hospital lighting, where like Gomez is lit at like in hospital lighting, but she always has like the perfect like
the slit
of eye slit cast on her face and stuff.
So I'm pretty sure that's a tribute to the Bela Lugosi Dracula. Because there's a really famous close-up of his eyes where his eyes are, like, lit in a strip.
That's really cool.
But I found it so funny that, like, sure, in, like, a dark scene in their mansion,
makes sense.
She'll be lit that way. That makes enough sense. But then she's, like, on the hospital gurney, like, being wheeled down the hallway, and she's still lit that way. I'm like, no, that's funny. That's really funny.
That's very funny. That, like, well, again, with the micro storytelling, I think there was a lot of interesting moments like that in the first one. Mm-hmm. It just was lacking in some areas. Like, I think it was really funny. I think they were doing a school play in the first movie, and the teacher's like, oh, you're supposed to write about your hero, and Wednesday wrote about, like, one of her ancestors that was burned at the stake because she, was promiscuous with men, and Morticia was like, oh, yeah, but don't worry about that. We told her to wait until after college to do that. It was so funny.
It did have a good sense of humor.
It was good. It was funny.
But yeah, I felt like the first one was just like, it kind of came and went in my mind. I was like, okay, that was a thing.
I don't know.
But then the second one had more memorable jokes.
Oh,
it had like the memorable dance scene.
Oh, yeah.
Which was awesome. Joan Cusack was really funny.
She was good honesty. In it, yeah.
I do quite like Joan Cusack. I like her in Toy Story 2. I like her in School of Rock.
Oh, yeah. She's three very different roles, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
She's very, she's good at being different things. Chameleon, yes.
Yeah. She's
versatile.
I think she's more herself in, say, like, Grosse Pointe Blank,
Yeah.
But yeah, Miss Mullins in School of Rock, that's I think that was the first thing I saw her in. And so I just saw her in that, like, box of, like, uptight principal, and then seeing her in other stuff, I was like, wow, she's got a lot of range.
She does. She's a very great comedic actress, which makes her so great in something like School of Rock, where it's like she's playing an uptight character that lets loose.
Yeah.
So then you see sort of those funny moments of her letting loose as this uptight person.
Yeah. I want to give a medal to whoever decided to cast Joan Cusack opposite Jack Black, because I think that's a really funny pairing.
Yeah, I would like to see more of that, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's definitely an underrated choice as being a comedic actress. Mm-hmm. And same with Morticia.
Angelica Houston.
Yeah, I'm so bad with names lately. Angelica Houston is so underrated. She plays all of these like funny characters. Like in Grand Budapest, she plays that super old lady, right? That's her, right?
No.
No?
No. That's Tilda Swinton.
Darn. Okay, but Tilda Swinton is also underrated.
I don't know if I've seen Angelica Houston in anything else.
Oh, she's in a bunch of Wes Anderson movies.
Is she?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I guess you're right. Wait, was she like the ex-wife in Steve Zissou?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but like, I felt like the standout role was, I think, I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name correctly.
Gomez?
I don't want to butcher it, but yeah, Gomez.
The actor, it was Raul something.
Raul Julia.
He is the perfect choice for Gomez.
He was excellent because he's better. He's better than like the TV show Gomez.
Yeah, when you see Gomez in the original, you're like, oh, okay, Raul is like an even better choice.
Yeah.
That was like the role he was made for, I would say.
Unfortunately, he died very shortly after the second movie.
I know.
Which was very sad.
Because it would have been great to like see him in more Addams Family property type stuff.
Yeah, or anything else.
Yeah, anything else.
Matter.
He would have made such a great Desi Arnaz. To me, when I was seeing him on the screen, I'm like, oh, he has very similar mannerisms to Desi Arnaz. It would have been so great to see him in a biopic doing that. Oh,
well, what threw me off about whatever his name was,
Raul? Or...
No, in the guy who played Desi in the Aaron Sorkin.
Oh, the guy that was in No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, was it Benicio del Toro?
No. It was
it's another one of those three names.
Yeah. There's not many Latin actors out there, which is a shame.
Gosh,
they should really cast more.
Hey, who played Desi Arnaz in what was it? Keeping Up with the what? No, what was it called?
A Week with Desi and Lucy or something?
No. It had a much dumber name than that. Hey, shut up. Oh, what was the name?
They just said it.
Being the Ricardos. Hey, who played Desi Arnaz in Being the Ricardos? Javier Bardem. I didn't even need it.
Yeah.
Javier Bardem. Thanks, Google. Okay, so Javier Bardem, the part of Being the Ricardos that threw me off so much was that his voice is so low and deep. But Desi Arnaz's voice is not deep.
No.
He's got like a high voice. He kind of talks like... Well, I'm not going to do an
He's a very comedic actor, and he definitely does like a squeaky voice for comedic effect a lot of times, or he does singy-songy voice like Lucy. Yeah. Like he's very, like he plays a musician. He is a musician. He's a vaudeville actor and stuff like that. So someone like Raul, who is very... he's metro, which is sort of what Desi was as well.
Okay.
Like, just having sort of a more, like, feminine energy, being a little more whimsical.
Sure.
Whereas someone like Javier Bardem seems a lot more masculine. Traditionally masculine energy. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree.
Yeah.
So at least, his voice is at least not as deep as Javier Bardem. But anyway. Back to the subject at hand. So
yeah,
I don't know if I really like. I guess I'll give a rating. Like initially I was like Addams Family 1 is very average. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. But then Addams Family Values, I was like, oh, it's more than average, 8 out of 10. But then I was like, oh, is it really?
It's really fun.
That good to give it an 8 out of 10. So then I bumped down Addams Family to 6 out of 10.
Okay.
And I gave Addams Family Values a 7 out of 10 because. What I decided was, even though Addams Family 1 was so average, the fact that it was so average and probably shouldn't have been brought it below average because it was just disappointing.
I think it was a big hit at the time.
I know that logic makes absolutely zero sense, but it's just my thoughts, man. It's just my thoughts.
I agree with you that the sequel is probably more rewatchable. Mm-hmm. And you probably don't want to give it an 8 because other things maybe deserve an 8.
Yeah.
So
George of the Jungle.
No.
But another 90s movie based off a 60s property. It's great.
Oh, come on.
If you guys haven't watched George of the Jungle, go watch the Brendan Fraser George of the Jungle.
All right.
You have against Brendan Fraser.
I don't have anything against him.
Hey, go watch it. Thomas Hayden Church, Sandman.
Okay, Thomas Hayden Church is very funny. Ned and Stacy, very underrated in that.
Yeah, it's a good show. We should finish that. We should go back to that.
Yeah.
All right. I'm ready to move on from Addams Family.
Yeah.
Anything else to say?
Well, I definitely love Morticia. Yeah. Like, I think that Angelica Houston, in my mind, is, like, the top, like, choice to be upheld.
Okay.
Kind of thing. Like, you know, there's some people that play a role, and you're like, this is the archetype for how it should be done going forward. Like Bela Lugosi. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. And then last few shout outs is, Christina Ricci.
Oh, yeah.
As Wednesday was excellent. And Christopher Lloyd as Fester, I love Christopher Lloyd. I can't see him in enough stuff.
Yeah. Pugsley is always a forgettable character.
Well, they didn't give him that much to do.
But even, like, thinking about the TV show, I just feel like he was never the center of attention.
Right.
But,
I suppose. I mean, I didn't watch much of the TV show. We watched like a part of an episode on Halloween just to get a feel for it.
Yeah.
It's not like we grew up with it.
No, but
was Pubert in the TV show?
That I don't know.
Cuba Addams.
But that was really funny.
Wanted to give him a name that a kid could really live with. Pubert.
Yeah. He has my father's eyes.
Gomez, get those out of his mouth. That was my favorite comedic moment from the second one. I was like, that's really funny. That's a good one. That
was a good one. I love all the macabre humor. Very good.
Yeah. So did you rate it?
No. I think what you're saying is fair. To me, it's one of those movies, it's like akin to like Christmas movies where it's like, I don't think it should be ranked on the same level as non-seasonal movies.
Interesting.
I think it's like just like, especially the second one is like a perfect sort of Halloween movie to throw on. Like maybe up there with Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters obviously being better.
Yeah. It's the Addams Family movies are the kinds of movies that like in the early to mid 2000s, you would definitely like see it playing on TV. I can imagine seeing it play on TV.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, this is on, throw it on. Like Casper.
Yep.
You know.
Another Christina Ricci feature.
It's on, just throw it on.
Yeah, throw it on and eat some Halloween candy, carve a pumpkin.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd buy it on Blu-ray, but hey, that's just me.
Yeah.
You know. So then we watched Moonage Daydream, the David Bowie documentary. Kind of a loose documentary. I will actually read the logline for this one. A cinematic odyssey exploring David Bowie's creative and musical journey from visionary filmmaker Brett Morgan and sanctioned by the Bowie estate. I don't know. That's a little bit self-indulgent to put. I mean, I'm sure Brett Morgan didn't write that, but just the fact that that's in there at all, like, I don't think any logline should really include that. You know, like
even if it's true.
If the Grand Budapest Hotel logline was like, hotel from the visionary director Wes Anderson, I'd be like, just get that out of there. You don't need that. Even if they are a visionary,
for an auteur, I could see it being more like, oh, he has a vision, he knows what he wants. Sure, but
you don't need that in the logline,
it's pretty self-indulgent. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, I took off airplane mode. I am going to look it up. What else has this guy done? Feel free to vamp while I'm looking this up. Oh, okay.
Okay.
You know what?
What did he do?
He's the producer of this. Is he the director? He is the director. Okay, he is a visionary. My bad.
Okay, I take it back. What did he do?
He did Cobain Montage of Heck.
Okay. When we were watching Moonage
Daydream.
Yeah. When we talked about it afterwards, I'm like, it reminds me of Montage of Heck, but it's not as good. Yeah. Okay, so that's why it felt similar.
Okay, backpedaling a bit. Visionary, check that box. Still take that out of the logline.
Yeah.
You don't need that.
Okay, so Montage of Heck is, in my opinion, one of the best music documentaries of all time.
One of the best documentaries, period.
Agreed.
It's like
a gold standard.
I think we might do a documentary episode in the future, and we'll get more into this topic.
We did that as one of our first episodes, was a documentary double feature.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about doing a documentary episode like where we just talk about documentaries across the board.
Sure.
And we'll talk about this topic more then, and I'm sure I mentioned in the past. There's documentaries generally about stuff that happened and documentaries about stuff that's happening. I would say Cobain Montage of Heck is one of the best documentaries about something that's happened.
Agreed.
As in, like, when the director rolled camera, the main content of the documentary had already taken place.
What I think makes that work is, even if it's happened, they have footage from when it's happening. So it makes you feel like it's there. Like, the movie we watched about basketball that I'm forgetting the title of.
What? King of Kong? He was a basketball?
Yeah. No, the Michael Jordan documentary.
The Last Dance. And that wasn't a movie. That was a miniseries.
So, and we don't watch basketball.
No.
But it was a great documentary because they have all this footage from that time period that they were able to look back on, and it felt like you were there.
Yeah. So that's kind of an exception where it's like, it's kind of a hybrid, a documentary that happened and is happening, because the documentary itself is being made after it happened, but the majority of the cameras that were rolling were like in the moment. Yeah,
that's what makes it work. Yeah. For sure.
So just looping back. So Moonage Daydream, it was a very loose documentary. It wasn't like Montage of Heck where it had a lot of Montage of Heck had a lot of interviews with like Courtney Love. Kurt's parents, Kurt's bandmates. It wasn't like that. The only interviews were like talk show interviews with Bowie from back in the day, from when he was alive. And so it was a lot of bouncing between that and sort of like music mashup montages, which I thought were the best parts of the movie. And they did some really cool stuff where like they cut between him playing the same song in like the 70s live and then the 90s live. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, like seeing that in his different styles, more of his colorful era, and then sort of getting to his older era where he's a little more reserved in how he looks.
He's a little bit more himself, you know?
I think he was always himself. He was just expressing himself in a different way.
I suppose. He kind of touched on that in the documentary where he's like, earlier in his career, he felt like he needed to make a persona, whereas the true self was like hidden away and he didn't bring it out that much. And then later in his career, he felt more comfortable being like his true self.
I think that speaks to anyone in their youth, though, is in part of finding yourself is you're taking all the things that you love and, as he said it, a hodgepodge personality. You're taking all the bits and pieces of the things that you love and then making it yourself. And out of that becomes like manifests your true self.
Yeah, it becomes easier to express yourself in your own way over time. Whereas like, particularly with me, this happened a lot when I was younger, is like before I was able to like form my own thoughts and opinions, I would embarrassingly just be like, oh, this person who I like and admire feels this way about this thing. Well, I guess that's my opinion now. And I'm going to kind of regurgitate what they've said. And as I've gotten older, even with doing the podcast, I find that anytime that I end up using words that aren't mine, I just feel very uncomfortable about it. Because it's not my own thought, you know?
Yeah. I like to reference if I agree with that opinion, like what he was saying about like a hodgepodge personality or any of the people that I admire. I'm like, okay, well, this aligns with how I feel about things, and this is who said it.
Yeah. Well, you got to take like bits and pieces until you can form your own thoughts about stuff.
This is something I talk about a lot. Is one of my favorite books called Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. He talks about how the best artists will take like 50 different things that they like that influence them. And then that becomes them. That's their original take. No one else like him. Like David Bowie. David Bowie has a lot of influences that he draws from in different ways.
Yeah. Whereas you say that it's talked about in the book, like if you steal from like one artist.
It's like you're copying them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's no originality, right?
Right. And, well, one of the great things about that is it never, as you're saying, is over time, you see what is truly you from underneath it. So you might be taking 50 influences, but you're putting your own spin on it. As he says, it's like, you're never going to make a perfect copy in the best way. It's always going to come out different, which is what makes it you.
Yeah. I have planned to read that book for a long time, and one of that author's books has been on my nightstand waiting to be read, but it's been a busy period. I haven't been much into the reading.
Yeah, lately, it's a very short book.
You do, you talk about that book a lot, and I find it very intriguing, and I would like to dive into it.
Yeah, he has a third book that I haven't read yet that I'm very interested in as well. Right.
So the Bowie doc, I overall liked it. I found it one of the most inspirational movies that I've seen because he just talks a lot about how, you know, you brought this up off mic, you know, if you're going to do something creative, you have to like put your all into it. You can't half-ass it, you know? And he talks a lot about like always moving forward in his creativity and like putting certain like years behind him and trying to do something new, you know, no matter what it is. And it really makes you want to like, if you're a creative person, if you feel like you're a creative.
I think everyone's creative to some degree.
Right. But like if you're sort of in a creative field,
professional
work,
creative.
Professional creative.
Like we are.
It makes you want to like go out and do the thing that you've always wanted to do and like get stuff done.
Yeah. You know? Well, they always say, and he sort of said this, do what scares you.
Yeah.
If you feel too comfortable, that means that you're ready to dive in deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something really to live by. Like you're not going to get anywhere by playing it safe. Like you have to take risks, which was the thesis of Sing Street. I would say that very similar, that we watched it over the same weekend, about David Bowie was an artist in the 80s, and Sing Street was about a boy named Connor that was in the 80s and was very influenced by all the different 80s stars, and it came out being him. Yeah. And David Bowie was one of them. He comes to school dressed with like blue eyeliner and like kind of like colorful hair, which is very David Bowie-esque, where he experimented with a lot of hair colors and fashion and colorful makeup and stuff.
So we'll dive into Sing Street. I will read the log line. So Sing Street came out in 2016. A boy growing up in Dublin during the 1980s escapes his strained family life by starting a band to impress the mysterious girl he likes. So this, again, is one of Hannah's favorite movies, and I'll come right out and say we highly recommend this movie, and we will be spoiling it. We'll be talking about the ending. So I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it, stop the podcast now and go and watch it. I'll see if I can put like a timestamp on the screen to mark where we will be talking about Sing Street spoilers. But just for the sake of it, we both really love this movie and highly recommend it. And I would hate for it to be spoiled because it's just a nice little journey.
It's very rewatchable for me, and there were so many moments watching it where I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to watch this part. I almost flew out of my chair.
I love that kind of movie, and I felt similarly because you showed me this movie. It came out in 2016. I think you probably showed it to me in about 2018. And I knew that the movie meant a lot to you, and so watching it, I was like, this is pretty good. I can see how she likes it. It's not my favorite movie, but I appreciate that it makes Hannah happy. And then rewatching it yesterday, I was like, this is a lot better than I remember it being. A lot of the movie I didn't quite fully remember. Like, I remembered the main story beats, but a lot of the stuff in the middle, like, I completely forgot that there was a sister character.
Honestly, me too, and I love this movie. But only because she's in a couple scenes in the background, doesn't have a lot of lines. Right. The important relationship is the brother-brother relationship.
Yeah. So. I remembered Rafina being a lot bigger of a jerk. She's still kind of a little bit of a jerk.
She's very damaged goods.
She's got like stuff going on.
Yeah.
So it's understandable. But in my mind, she was just like totally flippant and like a jerk. So rewatching it, and for some reason, it's a very musical movie, but for some reason, I only remembered them playing like two songs. I remembered Riddle of the Model and Drive It Like You Stole It, which is an absolute banger.
It's two standouts for sure. They're very catchy.
Right. But all the rest of the songs, I just completely blanked on. And so every time a new song came on, I was like, oh man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And it really made me want to listen to the soundtrack after watching it.
For sure. I would say Up is another one of my favorites from the soundtrack because they play it more than once. Mm-hmm. In different versions. They play like an upbeat version with the band, and then he plays like just like a solo acoustic version.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so last chance to go watch Sing Street before I spoil the ending. So you have said, Hannah, that one of the only things that you didn't like about the movie
on your first watch
was the ending. Because the movie ends with them kind of, it's got like, I won't be super specific, but it's a bit of like a ride off into the sunset kind of moment.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah. And you, well, I'll let you say it in your own words. What was your problem with that ending the first time you saw it?
I think I was more worried about complete closure. Okay. But I think it's more fun to have that open ending, and then you're allowed to think whatever you want to think about it.
Right.
And especially as a creative person, you're kind of hoping that whatever happens, that it makes them happy and they find some kind of success, whatever that happens to be, even if it doesn't work out. Mm-hmm. So I think it's nice that it was left open, and it had to end somewhere.
Yeah. Sort of the outward problem with it is that it's a bit ridiculous. Like if you'll watch the movie, the kind of their goal at the end of the film is kind of like, is that really gonna happen? Like
that's what makes it funny.
They're not gonna like come across any trouble with this plan. But then we read this piece of trivia from the director.
Sure.
And it is as follows. Quote, "Well, I don't see it just as a happy romantic ending. I think that's the tone of the piece, but I think it's more like they're setting off together. That's true. But I wouldn't say that's some huge relationship that's going to last forever. They're kids. I sort of hope the scene at the end would look a little like a fantasy sequence. You're supposed to wonder where the reality ends and the pop video begins. But people are actually taking it very seriously, and people are presuming it's fully real, which is interesting. That wasn't the intention. So I think that's a good distinction, that there are some dream sequences in the film where things are happening in a lot more of a romantic and fantastical way than is happening in reality.
Particularly Drive It Like You Stole It.
Yeah. And so to interpret the ending as at face value is a little like, oh, come on, is this really what they're doing? This is ridiculous. But then for the director to say like, oh, it's kind of, you kind of meant to draw your own line between where we transition into the fantasy. I think that's a pretty good note on
pretty good way to look at it.
Yeah.
I think it's just good to end it on a high note as well. And whether or not they're in each other's lives forever, they changed each other's lives forever because they both believed in each other. Like, he wouldn't have like started a band probably if it wasn't for her. And
for sure. That was the whole point.
It seemed to change his life completely. And it like made him a way more confident person that was able to deal with his problems in a way better way. Mm-hmm. And like, because he was able to, like, he said this to the bully in one of the scenes. He's like, you mean nothing to me now. Like, I'm just going to channel how I feel into my music. And like, it just really helped him cope with things. Like, his family was going through a lot of troubles and stuff. Yeah. So just that he was reaching for the stars and like going for his dreams as a creative person was really touching. And he formed a really cool relationship. Like, that's how he was able to make friends at his new school. Was forming a band, and you know, he obviously had like a great partnership with Eamon that I'm sure will last a long time. They seem like they're close friends, and so that was just really sweet overall. Yeah,
it's a great script. I found it to be a really nice, tight script.
Very tight. Yeah.
I love scripts that like don't have a lot of loose ends and have a lot of great plant and payoff and have a lot of good ideas flowing throughout.
Oh,
like Back to the Future is one of those scripts, like one of the best written scripts.
Mm-hmm. There was definitely some influence for Back to the Future in this.
Oh yeah, they talk about Back to the Future a couple of times.
Yeah,
and it was very funny. A lot of the jokes were laugh out loud funny, even though they were delivered in kind of like a subtle way.
Very subtle.
Like
that's what made it less hokey. It was like it's just people talking.
Yeah. Like where he kisses her for the first time, and she's like, "Oh yeah, good move, fair enough," and he's like, "What about your boyfriend?" And she's like, "Yeah, you ruined it." That was really good.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, we talk about the ending not being super realistic, and it's like, how would that actually end in real life? But like, they tell their plan to the brother, and they're like, "We're gonna do this," and he's like, "So you're going to do this, but you don't really have like a good plan for what happens after." And he's like, haha, let's go. Yeah. Like, he's all in because at least they're trying to do something with their lives. They're trying to go for it and take risks, which is what Bowie did. And which is what the brother wanted to do. He had all these plans for his life, but he stopped taking risks.
Right. So I would give this movie, like, I'm very close to giving this movie a 10.
This is a 10 for me.
I know. That's why I'm not giving it a 10.
Yeah.
It's because this is your movie. This is a Hannah favorite movie. I don't want to make it into an Andrew favorite movie.
You can if you want.
I don't want to leave that to you. I want to let you do your thing. So I'm gonna give it a 9 bracket 0.5 end bracket. Yeah. So it's like a very, very strong 9.
Yeah.
And I'm only not giving it a 10 because I don't want to steal your thunder.
Okay. Is this movie perfect in every single way?
Yeah.
Maybe no, but it's perfect to me.
Right. It's perfect for
any small little flaws it has, I can overlook because so much of this movie makes me so happy and the music is so good and there's so many amazing elements to it that inspire me. Mm-hmm. And it's just so good stylistically, has so many memorable scenes that I'm like, this movie is one of my perfect movies.
Yeah. The acting is great. All the kids are so funny.
Yeah, for sure. In very subtle ways.
It's got such a great style.
I haven't seen any movies like it.
I'm sure there are.
But to me, and it was such a hidden gem. I heard no hype about this movie. Just saw it on Netflix. Thought the log line was interesting. Popped it on. Really? And my mind was blown.
Yeah. I can imagine that.
So to me, it was like, this is, for me, this is like special. Because it's something I found on my own with no hype surrounding it. And it was just like this special thing.
Mm-hmm. The reason why we rewatched it was we were spending time with my mom for the weekend. And she's a big 80s girl in her own words. She loves 80s music, like new wave and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Her and her partner recognized much, if not most, if not all of the music, like the needle drops.
Yeah. In the fashion looks that he was sporting.
They were getting such a kick out of that. So that's right why we rewatched it.
Yeah.
And then moving into our next movie, the movie that they picked for us to watch, which both of us had not seen before, was 1973's The Sting, which has really been described to me as a classic. And they were really pumped to watch it.
Why, yeah.
And let me hit you with this extremely short and to the point log line.
Okay, yeah.
So, The Sting, 1973, starring Robert Redford and Paul Newman. Legends. Two grifters team up to pull off the ultimate con. Boom, mic drop. There it is.
Honestly, that's all you need.
Yeah.
And I feel like too many log lines give too much away.
Totally.
Where it's like you read the log line, you're like, that doesn't even happen until like halfway through the movie. Like, how dare you log line?
There was another part of the log line. By visionary direct... No, just kidding.
Your mom said it won like 7 Oscars, and it was nominated for 10.
It was good. This was another movie where we haven't talked about it since we watched it. We basically... The movie ended and we went to bed, essentially. Yeah. So here we go. Let's open it up to the floor. What were your thoughts?
I think it is one of those movies that feels sort of blockbustery, not in a bad way, whereas like we have the two handsome leading men, they're doing this big thing, like all the gangs together, we're pulling this like sort of heist thing. It's kind of like that generation's Ocean 11.
Well, it's funny. I was about to say that, where like, I mean, it is funny that you say that, because like 15 years before that, or however many years before, was that generation's Ocean 11. Yeah. And I did say this during the movie, where I was like, Robert Redford and Paul Newman were kind of like the original Clooney and Pitt.
Yeah. I would say that Robert Redford is Pitt, and
visually,
Paul Newman is,
for sure, yeah.
Just in terms of, I think Clooney's older. In my mind, he's the wiser, older one.
Well, he has like silver fox hair and like most things.
Well, he's had that for decades.
Yeah.
So
I really enjoyed that aspect of it. We've seen Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. We both liked that.
Oh yeah.
I do really like the pairing of Robert Redford and Paul Newman. Like, how can you not?
Yeah.
Right.
Two handsome, iconic, for their generation boys.
Yeah, I liked all the suits, like all the 3-piece suits and all the dapper looks. Suits. Yeah, that was great. I got a kick out of when they brought Robert Redford to the barber, sat him down in the chair, and basically just slicked his hair back and didn't actually cut anything.
They're like, oh, we got to make you look believable as like this fancy man. It's fancy like, man. He already is. I don't know. I love seeing them in the tuxes. That was spot on.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was funny that they traded mustaches between Butch Cassidy and this. They were like, all right, just take mine off and
put it on you.
Yeah.
I found the introduction of Paul Newman very funny, where he's like sleeping in between the bed with his like nose turned up.
Yeah, that's like Marty McFly levels of awkward sleeping.
That's true. Maybe that was a tribute to him.
It could have been.
Oh, yeah. It was very funny.
So again, I did feel like this was a pretty strong script.
Yeah.
But maybe like
it was a little long in the
10 minutes could have been cut out of it.
Too much exposition. I think they could have sped it up a little bit.
Most of the scenes were necessary, but like, let's say if we split up the movie into quarters, I think the second quarter could have had some stuff cut out of it. The whole second half is extremely strong, and the first quarter is very needed. The second quarter was kind of like, that was the only part in the movie where I actually had to stop the movie and not necessarily ask what was going on, but just make sure that I understood what was going on. Because that's the kind of thing where like you miss one little bit of information but missing that bit of information makes you miss like 4 other pieces of information.
For sure.
And the piece of information that I happened to miss was why they were going after Robert Shaw's character.
That's pretty big, because that's the whole second half.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More than the second half.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole plot.
Yeah.
So I was just like, wait, is it for revenge or was it for money, or like, wait, what? And I just had to get that confirmed.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was like, okay, we're off to the races here.
Yeah.
And so the whole second half I thought was really strong.
I liked all the twists and turns.
Yeah. Again, we're going to be spoiling this. If you haven't...
Should we spoil it? I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it necessary? I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, fair enough. Well, I will say there's a couple of twists that happen.
They're good. Yeah. Phantom payoff.
And the very final one, which is like arguably the biggest one, I definitely really did not see coming.
Okay, I didn't see that coming, but I did see something coming with the waitress. But it was something different than I thought.
Right. The final twist, the big reveal at the end, I was actually... The only thing that tipped me off a little bit was I was like, right before the twist was revealed, about a minute before it was revealed, I was like, wow, I can't believe they're ending the movie this way.
Yeah. I was like, I wasn't sure if it was real or not.
Right.
But I liked what they did with it.
Well,
I thought it ended really well.
They're great actors, and they really sold the believability of where the twist was originally going before the reversal, right?
Yeah, it was great.
So I really appreciated that, and just overall, it was a very strong movie.
For sure.
I don't know if it's like immediately shooting up to be like one of my all-time favorites or like an all-time classic, but I can see why it got a lot of attention, and I definitely really liked it.
It's of its time as well.
Yeah, I think upon repeat viewings, I will probably appreciate it more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, I feel like a lot more modern movies have like tighter scripts. They don't leave a whole lot. Like
really?
Okay. I just feel like more modern movies are a little bit faster paced in editing and how they choose to do things. Whereas if you watch an older movie, it's a lot more drawn out, and they have like different chunks.
That can be really good though.
I'm not saying it's bad.
We talked about this in our Vertigo episode, where it's like, if you're going to have a long, slow-paced movie or a slow-paced scene or a slow-paced part in a movie, if you have a good reason to make it that way, then it can be very effective. So one example in The Sting that I thought was great was when it's the scene where they're with the FBI agents, with the detective and Robert Redford's character, and they ask, or basically force, Robert Redford to turn on why do I want to say Butch Cassidy? Paul Newman's character. Yeah. And when he's kind of faced with that decision, he takes this really long pause. Like, it's got to be like at least a 10-second pause where Robert Redford's really selling that, like, he's thinking about it and he's conflicted. He doesn't just immediately like make the decision or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was really glad that they took that extended amount of silence to really effective. To really set in that his mind was like working and he like really had to think about it.
Yeah.
Right. So slow pace like that, I think, can be very effective.
But when it's done, like when it's utilized in a way like that. Mm-hmm. But I just, I think more as someone that's used to more modern movies, as a modern movie goer, watcher, and everything, I think watching an older movie, which I love older movies and older TV shows, sometimes they just have a different way of going about things than newer eras.
Yeah. Pace is definitely important, but for a movie with a semi-complicated plot like this, I think more important than pace is just making sure that you're not over-explaining and making sure that you're not under-explaining.
Especially for a script like this.
I will give this movie a gold medal for that. Because aside from maybe the second quarter, where maybe things were going by a little bit too fast, or maybe I was just distracted, I don't know.
It's possible.
I felt that it was the perfect level.
Yeah.
Some movies don't explain quite enough and it can kind of get you lost. But then other movies read more modern movies can sometimes over-explain every single thing that's happening and really like hammer it in too much.
Mm-hmm. I call that an exposition dump.
Yeah. And so this movie did an excellent job in that it explained just the right amount to the audience to keep them understanding where Robert Redford and Paul Newman's heads were at. Mm-hmm. But they didn't explain so much that they completely gave away what their plan was.
Yeah.
Because a modern movie probably would have done that. A modern movie would have been like, okay, let's lay out the plan, and here's where we're going to do
Ocean's
this twist.
11.
And it's you know, because an audience can be along for a dupe the exact same way that the person in the movie that they're duping can be.
It depends really on how it's told. So like Hitchcock's way of doing things is sometimes to create good suspense, you let the audience in on something that's happening that the character doesn't know. Mm-hmm. Like, I think one of the most effective ways of visual storytelling in the movie was the poker scene.
Okay.
So Paul Newman didn't exactly know what Robert Shaw's plan was, but he had sort of his own plan. So they were both kind of like unaware of what the other person was doing. But as the audience member, we were let in to what those plans were. So we're like, what's going to happen? Kind of thing. And it creates a moment of suspense. And just the way that they shot them looking at the cards and like the close-ups and everything, I found that sequence really effective.
It definitely was. Robert Shaw's performance, by the way, I had only ever seen him in Jaws. And I thought he was so great in this. I just loved watching his like stare of anger.
He's a great villain.
I felt like he had to have been the inspiration for countless villains that came after. Like, for some reason, I was getting a really, like, Dr. Robotnik vibe from Sonic.
Yeah, like, I could see it with the mustache.
He's a bigger man, sort of balding with a mustache. Like, I feel like take him and make him, like, 10 times sillier, and he's, like, a little bit Dr. Robotnik.
Yeah.
But the poker scene, I will say that was an example where maybe they under-explained a little bit, because I understood that Paul Newman was going to cheat. I understood that halfway through Robert Shaw decided to cheat, but I didn't quite understand how Robert Shaw was cheating. He said, give me a fixed deck, 3s over 9s or 9s over 3s or something. I didn't really understand what that meant. I thought it was like a deck that had more 9s in it than 3s. And it had to be explained afterwards that he fixed it so that he knew exactly what cards Paul Newman was going to be dealt, and he knew exactly what cards he himself was going to be dealt. So I didn't pick that up. So then when that scene concluded, and it was kind of like Robert Shaw knew that Paul Newman was cheating, but he couldn't say it. I was like, wait, why can't he say it?
Well, he says that in the next scene. He's like, I couldn't say it.
Yeah.
So they showed earlier in the sequence him and his people fixing the deck. Like, they were moving stuff around, had handkerchiefs and stuff.
I saw that.
So they were trying to con a con man. And of course, someone like Paul Newman is watching out for those visual cues as well.
Right.
So he knew it was happening.
This is what I'm saying is I knew that he was cheating. I just didn't understand exactly how that the specifics of the cheating was put together, which was why Robert Shaw was so pissed off when he saw that he had 3 jacks and thus knew that he was cheating. I figured if they had just included a line like, oh, we'll know exactly what hand he has, then maybe I would have understood a little bit better.
To me, that was implied. Okay, so like for Paul Newman in the scene with Robert Redford earlier on, he doesn't explain to Robert Redford how he's cheating. He just shows visually like, okay, I know how to manipulate the deck to get what I want.
Yep.
So it's a similar sort of thing.
I suppose.
It's
kind of semantics.
To me, is like something like that could be easily left up to the audience. It's like, we know this guy loves to cheat at poker, Robert Shaw's character. So obviously he has ways of going about that. And they showed sort of maybe how he was starting to do that. And I don't think something like that needs to be fully spelled out to me as an audience member. We know he's cheating. I don't think it matters specifically how.
See, that's fair.
Yeah.
I would say that's a fair take. The only reason why I brought it up is because I did ask afterwards. I was like, wait, why does he...
Yeah.
Why can't... Anyway.
For sure.
Other than that, great scene. Great acting across the board.
It's probably one of my favorite scenes. That and the end sequence.
Oh, yeah. for sure. So I would give it, I don't know, I haven't thought about the rating yet. Like I said, we watched it last night and immediately went to bed. Would I give it a 9? I'm not sure. Probably. Yes, I think I would give it a 9.
I think this is a movie that I would like more on rewatch.
Yeah.
But I do love seeing, like, the cool leading men wearing, like, cool suits and stuff. I'm someone that's very fashion oriented, and I'm always, like, pointing at the screen being like, oh, that's a great jacket. I love that suit.
Yeah.
Or I love that dress or whatever. So me, even just watching the good fashion, I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is enjoyable.
Like I said, I think I will appreciate it more upon rewatch, but I'm not eager to rewatch it.
No.
For the same reason why I wasn't eager to rewatch Whiplash, even though I absolutely adored that movie.
I would love to rewatch it now, though.
I wanted to preserve my initial feeling having watched it for the first time.
I agree.
Because watching The Sting and not knowing the twist at the end is not a moment I can ever have again.
That's true.
I experienced that for the first time yesterday, of seeing that twist play out, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right then.
That's
and
why
I will never have that moment again.
I don't want to reveal it, because if someone hears this and they're thinking, oh, I'm probably not going to watch The Sting. But then they hear that there's a good twist, they might be like, oh, I'm going to watch it now. I feel that way about some movies. I'm like, oh, this movie has a twist. I didn't think that it did. Okay, I'm interested now.
Right. I mean, we've talked enough about the fact that it was a twist that I hope anybody who's listening to this podcast either didn't listen to it or stopped early and then went to watch it, because
maybe put a disclaimer.
Yeah. Now that you're expecting a twist, you're gonna see it coming.
That's possible.
Unfortunately.
But I think it was a good movie to watch. Like, I'm always wanting to watch older cinema so I can appreciate newer cinema and, just learn more about things in the previous eras. And I just love vintage culture. I love vintage fashions and stuff.
Mm-hmm. If I had to give one small criticism, I will say that occasionally the music kind of took me out of the experience, because the music, at least the music that I noticed, was like very kind of silly comedic piano riffs.
Yeah.
I was okay with it for the opening where they played The Entertainer. It's kind of gearing you up that, like, this movie is going to be a fun ride. This movie's not going to be like a dark story. It's like,
It wasn't.
It's like, here we go.
To me, it didn't feel super dark, even
though
there
it wasn't.
Some dark elements.
Yeah. Even Robert Redford is like, I don't have the gumption to kill him, basically, so I'm not going to. We got to con him instead of.
Yeah.
So that I was okay with. But then by the time they were doing the scene where Robert Redford's being chased, and it's like a pretty tense chase scene, he's like really bolting. And they go to like the train station, and he jumps up on the roof and he's running. I was like, wow, this is a really cool scene. And it's being totally ruined by the goofy piano music that's making it seem like a 1930s, 1920s silent film comedy.
Like a Scooby-Doo chase.
Yeah. And I know it takes place in the 1930s. That's fine. But I'm saying, like, that scene wasn't particularly comedic until you put the comedic music underneath it. And then I was like, well, now I can't really take it seriously.
Yeah. I think it was a good movie, and I think for non-modern movies, we have to take it with a grain of salt, as I tend to say. Yeah. Is like, we shouldn't have modern expectations for a non-modern film, is what I feel. Generally,
in life, go to Loblaws, go to Walmart, buy a big pack of salt, take a grain of salt with you everywhere you go in all experiences. Yeah. Grain of salt is worth considering for every single thing that you come across.
Yeah, well, I just think it's unfair to compare two things that aren't similar. Mm. But as we know, you love to compare two things that are similar. Yes. That's one of Andrew's favorite things.
I don't know why. Especially, with everything, right?
Yeah.
With music, I'll be like, listen to this take on Beatles Anthology next to this take, and it's like, play it slower, but it's the same, right?
Let's play Dancing Queen demo and then play the studio version back to back and compare.
It's one of my favorite things ever. But like video games too, like, oh, look at the differences between this remaster and this remake. Yeah. And that's why I watch Remake or Rebreak.
So let's use video games as a comparison.
Sure.
So what is your favorite older video game?
My favorite older video game? Depends how old you're going, but...
Old. As old as you can.
As old as I can?
That you still enjoy.
That I still enjoy. Okay. Maybe like Super Mario Brothers 3
Okay.
It's pretty classic, and it's pretty old.
Okay, and what's the newest game you love?
The newest game that I love?
Yeah, like maybe like Spider-Man or something.
Okay, sure.
Or like Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay, yeah. For the sake of simplicity, let's go with the new Spider-Man or Red Dead Redemption 2, whichever came out more recently. We'll say Red Dead 2.
Okay, so you love those games.
Yeah.
But look how completely different they are. But they're enjoyed for different reasons, and you shouldn't expect something like Super Mario Brothers 3 to have like the same music or visual quality as a modern video game.
Of course, yeah.
But that can help you enjoy it in that way. It's like, okay, it's not modern, it's not what I would expect now out of a game, but it still has those vintage qualities. Like, okay, that's what makes it special because it was from that time period. Well,
that's why I think it's important to watch multiple movies from a certain time period to get perspective, right?
Yeah.
This is what I plan to do when we eventually watch Citizen Kane. Is I don't want to just like jump right into Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
I want to watch like the most popular movies from like 2 years before and 1 year before Citizen Kane, and then see Citizen Kane, because I'm led to believe a lot of what made Citizen Kane good at the time was the way that it did things differently.
So what year did that come out? Do you know?
I'm not sure. Probably.
Is it like 30s or 40s?
I'm going to say probably 40s, but
okay. Well, we watched Frankenstein, and a lot of elements of Frankenstein we thought were staggering, like just not what we're used to in modern cinema.
Well, this feeds right into my point, right? Is you watch Frankenstein and you're like, wow, I guess movies back then didn't have really that much music at all. But that's not true. Movies back then had plenty of music, and the 1930s Dracula, made around the same time, had very iconic music.
Oh, yeah? Well, I wouldn't know.
And so you look at Frankenstein and you're like, oh, well, take it with a grain of salt. It was made a long time ago. But then when you watch movies from that time, it's like, actually, no, the music was kind of a garbage choice even at the time.
Okay. So let's see. So what movies were released the year before The Sting?
Well, it was 1970s, early 70s. You're really putting me on the spot here. How am I supposed to know that just off the top of my head?
Okay, just give me a second and I'll look it up.
Okay, let's pause here. Okay, so the most popular movie released the year before The Sting came out was The Godfather.
Okay. I think my art... Well, in some ways it doesn't, because the pacing in The Godfather is a lot more drawn out.
It's quite slow, yeah.
It's not bad. Like, so The Godfather is, probably considered one of the, in terms of more modern cinema, it's one of the greatest films of all time. That's a very long and drawn out movie. Yeah. And it's not a bad movie. It's just different.
I never said I had a problem with the pacing.
I did.
In The Sting. Okay.
Well, okay.
Enough. But
again, not bad. It was just long in the tooth.
It was long. But I felt like most of the scenes were necessary. What is something that I think we have to take into consideration with The Sting is that it's a period piece. It takes place in the 1930s. So I think it's trying to emulate some film conventions of the 1930s.
That's true. So, like the name cards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When it started, my stepdad was like, oh, that's funny. They used to do like the name card introduction thing. And I was like, I think that's kind of supposed to be like a goof. Because I don't think they did that in the 70s. I think maybe they did it in the 30s.
I mean, if you're thinking about, like, The Godfather, it's like they don't...
Godfather didn't do that. This is a completely different movie.
It is a completely different movie.
But, so with the musical cues, I think the reason why they did it like that is they're trying to make it feel more like the 30s. Mm-hmm. Which is fine. I just didn't see The Sting as very much of a comedy. There was a couple of humorous moments, but, like...
Well, I don't know. I can't speak to that if it's just comedies that did that or if that's just how movies were.
I'm just saying I got a comedic tone from it, is all.
I think you were meant to have somewhat of, like, it's the same with, I'm going to compare it to Ocean's 11 because I feel like that's the most modern equivalent I can think of. Mm-hmm. It's like something like Ocean's 11. It was a heist movie. It was pretty comedic.
Yeah.
So I think it was maybe similar. Yeah. Similar to that. I don't know. I don't think we were supposed to take it too seriously.
All right.
I don't know. That's my opinion.
I'm saying I don't have very many complaints about The Sting is what I'm saying. I thought it was paced pretty well. a couple of things could have been cut out. A couple of music cues could have been changed. But overall, I thought it was a really solid experience, and I'm glad I watched it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially looking back on it. At the time when we were watching it, it was pretty late in the night, and I was like, I hope I don't fall asleep during this scene. Because, like, it wasn't always dialogue heavy. So I was always, like I was kind of, like, nodding off because I'm like, oh, I just kind of want to, like, close my eyes and listen. I'm like, I don't want to fall asleep. But I didn't fall asleep, and I enjoyed it overall. So
Similarly, we started it around, like, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I was kind of, like, of the mind that we were probably going to watch half of it and then stop and then finish it the next day.
Yeah.
But I was pretty engaged, especially by the halfway point. I was like, there's no stopping this train. Like, I want to see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we were all tired, but
yeah.
Crashing from mass amounts of coffee earlier in the day.
Well, it certainly helped drinking decaf and cannoli to enjoy the experience even further.
Yeah. Should we bust out some more cannoli?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll
finish up on camera.
Yeah.
Crunch.
We'll finish up this podcast episode with a little bit of cannoli. So
ASMR.
I gave it 9 out of 10. What would you give it?
Yeah, really get that ASMR. 9 out of 10. For me, because of I enjoyed it overall, but for me, it felt a little long in some areas. Like, it kept on going and going, a little slow in some areas, but still great. Maybe an 8.
Okay.
Which I think is pretty fair.
Yeah, that's fair. So that about wraps it up. I don't think it's very necessary to do much TV talk because
we probably talked for ages about these movies.
Mainly we've just been watching Survivor. We'll do a little bit of a wrap up on Survivor once the season ends. But
there's some shows I'm interested in watching with you going forward.
Yeah.
That maybe we could talk about. There's a couple I have in mind. So
episode of the Great British Bake Off where they make cannolis, maybe.
Maybe the Great British Bake Off with the Dairy Girls cast.
That's a thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
We should watch that.
Yeah.
Most likely the next episode will be the beginning of our international film mini marathon.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that.
I'm not sure which it'll be, but look forward to that.
So I'm definitely the movies that I'm picking, I think we're picking 4 each, and I'm picking 2 French films and 2 Italian films.
And I'm picking 2, I think, Korean films and 2 Japanese films.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. So. All right, we'll see what happens. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, dear.